There is a feeling quieter than anger, but heavier. It is not a sudden fire, but a slow, simmering poison. The quiet, bitter taste in the back of your throat, long after you have forced a smile and said, "It's fine." It is resentment. The feeling you get when you are the only one who remembers, the only one who organizes, the only one who gives without getting back. You tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way. You should be more generous, more patient, less transactional. And so you push the feeling down, ashamed of its presence. But what if that bitterness is not a flaw in your character? What if it is the most honest thing you are feeling? What if, as the great psychologist Carl Jung understood, your resentment is not the poison, but the alarm bell warning you that you are drinking poison? It is a sacred compass held in the hands of your shadow, and its needle is pointing with perfect accuracy to a place in your life where you are giving away your power, where a boundary is being violated, where a deep, unspoken contract of fairness has been broken. This video is not about learning to ignore that bitter taste. It is about learning to honor it, to follow it back to its source. This is the next crucial step in your shadow work, to face the quiet fire of resentment and to finally understand the wisdom in its heat. Resentment rarely arrives like a thunderclap. It seeps in like a slow rising tide. It is the accumulation of 1,000 tiny paper cuts to the soul, 1,000 moments where you gave a little more than you had, where you received a little less than you deserved, and where you said nothing. Let's go back to Sarah, the mother we spoke of in a previous story. She loves her family with a fierceness that is the very center of her world. Her persona is that of the effortless supermom, the one who remembers dentist appointments and soccer practice schedules, the one who knows where the lost homework is, the one who ensures the household runs like a well-oiled machine. She does it all with a smile, because she believes that is what love looks like. Love, to her, is selfless service. But let's look at a typical Tuesday evening. She comes home from a long day at work and walks into a house that looks like a storm has passed through it. Dishes in the sink, backpacks on the floor. She feels that familiar, small tightening in her chest, a flicker of irritation. Her anger, the guardian, is sending up a small flare. Boundary violation, it whispers. Shared space, unequal effort. But she silences it. They're just kids, she tells herself. My husband had a long day too. So she takes a deep breath and starts cleaning. Later, she makes a beautiful dinner. Everyone eats, they talk about their day, and as soon as the meal is over, the kids run off to their video games and her husband settles onto the couch to watch the news, leaving Sarah alone at a table full of dirty dishes. Another tightening in her chest, stronger this time. The guardian is shouting a little louder now. Unspoken expectation violated, it says. A partnership requires participation. But the prison guard of guilt steps in immediately. A good mother doesn't complain, it hisses. A loving wife doesn't nag. So she says nothing. She just does the dishes. As she's scrubbing a pot, her husband calls from the other room, "Honey, have you seen my keys?" And in that moment, that simple, innocent question feels like an anvil dropped on her soul. It is not anger she feels now. It is something colder, heavier. It is the bitter taste of resentment. Because the question is not just about the keys. It is about the unspoken truth that she is the designated keeper of all things, the holder of the family's mental load. And she is tired of holding it all. She wants to scream, "Why is it always my job to know where everything is?" But she doesn't. She dries her hands, finds the keys on the counter right in front of him, and hands them over with a tight, brittle smile. And another drop of poison is added to the well. This is the anatomy of resentment. It is the emotional residue of repeatedly swallowing your anger, of consistently betraying your own needs, of saying it's okay when it is not okay. The great insight from Carl Jung's shadow work is this: your psyche is a perfect accounting system. It keeps a flawless ledger. Every time you overgive, every time your contribution is unseen, every time a boundary is crossed without comment, your conscious mind, your persona, may choose to forget it in the name of peace. But your shadow never forgets. It is the meticulous bookkeeper of your soul. It notes every transaction, every withdrawal from your energy bank that was not matched by a deposit of appreciation, rest, or reciprocal effort. Resentment is the balance statement your shadow sends you. It is the flashing red overdue notice. It is your soul's accounting department screaming, "We are operating at a deficit. The energetic budget is out of balance. This is unsustainable." The tragedy is that we are taught to be ashamed of this balance statement. We are told that keeping score is unloving, that to expect something in return is transactional and selfish. So we hide the overdue notice. We pretend we didn't get it. And in doing so, we allow the debt to grow, the bitterness to deepen, until the day comes when the entire system goes bankrupt, and we find ourselves in the desolate landscape of burnout, wondering how we got there. You got there because you ignored the warnings. You ignored the quiet, persistent, and profoundly wise voice of your own resentment. It was never the enemy. It was your most honest, albeit painful, financial advisor. It was the part of you that knew the price of your yes long before you were willing to admit it to yourself. To see your resentment as a ledger is the first step. But what do you do with that information? How do you transform this painful balance statement into a map for freedom? We begin by treating resentment not as an enemy, but as a wise, albeit brutally honest, teacher. We stop being ashamed of it, and we start getting curious about it. This is the heart of shadow work. It is the willingness to turn towards the feelings we have been taught to run from. The brilliance of resentment, as a signal from your shadow, is its precision. Unlike vague sadness or anxiety, resentment is a sniper. It targets, with pinpoint accuracy, the exact location of a psychic wound. And it almost always points to one of two fundamental violations of your soul's integrity. The first direction your resentment compass points to is a repeatedly crossed boundary. A boundary is not a wall you build to keep people out. It is the sacred line you draw to define where you end and where another person begins. It is the demarcation of your sovereignty. It protects your most precious, non-renewable resources, your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. The people pleaser, the good person, is often taught that having boundaries is selfish. So they live as if they are a boundless public territory, free for anyone to enter and take what they need. Resentment is the cry of your over-farmed land. It is the protest of your plundered resources. When Sarah feels that bitterness, when her husband asks where his keys are, the compass is not pointing at her husband. It is pointing at the broken fence of a boundary. The boundary of, I am not the keeper of everyone's things. When you feel resentment towards a friend who always calls to complain, but never asks about your day, the compass is pointing to the boundary of, my emotional energy is not an unlimited resource. When you feel it towards a boss who emails you at 10 o'clock at night, it's pointing to the boundary of, my time outside of work is my own. Resentment is the guard dog that barks every time a trespasser crosses the line. Your job is not to silence the dog. Your job is to get up and see where the fence is broken. The second, and often more subtle direction your resentment compass points to is a broken, unspoken contract. In all of our relationships, we operate under a series of unspoken contracts based on our core values. Values like fairness, reciprocity, appreciation, respect. We often assume the other person has signed the same contract. We believe if I am considerate of their time, they will be considerate of mine. If I give a thoughtful gift, they will acknowledge it. If I do my share of the work, they will do theirs. Resentment is the piercing alarm that goes off when you realize the other party is not honoring the terms of the contract. When Sarah cleans the kitchen alone night after night, her resentment is the realization that the unspoken contract of "we are partners in this" has been violated. She is acting like a partner. Her family is acting like guests. This imbalance, this lack of reciprocity, is what fuels the bitterness. It's not about the dishes. It's about the fairness. This is why resentment feels so painful. Because it's not just about an action. It is about a betrayal of a core value. It is your shadow, the keeper of your deep integrity, telling you that the scales are not balanced, that the energetic exchange is dangerously one-sided. This is the profound gift hidden inside this toxic emotion. It gives you invaluable data. It provides a perfect diagnosis of what is wrong. Without the signal of resentment, you would continue to bleed out your energy, wondering why you feel so empty and exhausted. Resentment is the messenger that arrives with the difficult but life-saving news. There is a breach in the wall. The contract is void. The work, then, is not to kill the messenger. The work is to thank the messenger for the information, and then to have the courage to ask the next question, the question that moves you from victim to creator, the question that is the beginning of all real change. Now that I know where the problem is, what am I going to do about it?
To know that your resentment holds a message is one thing. To have the courage to decode it is another. This requires a quiet moment of radical honesty. It requires you to be a detective in the landscape of your own heart. This is a powerful shadow work practice you can do with a journal and a pen. It is a 4-step process to dissect your resentment, to move it from a vague, poisonous fog into a set of clear, actionable data points. Let's call it the resentment autopsy. Step 1. Identify the target. Resentment, unlike free-floating anxiety, almost always has a target, a person, a situation, a dynamic. In your journal, I want you to write this sentence and complete it with brutal honesty. The person or situation that is causing me the most resentment right now is, and write it down. Do not judge it. Do not soften it. Maybe it's your spouse, your boss, your mother, your best friend. Maybe it is the situation at work. It is crucial to name it. By naming it, you take it out of the realm of vague bitterness and you give it a specific form. You are focusing the beam of your awareness. Step 2. Follow the trail of expectation. Resentment is almost always born from a broken, unspoken contract, an unmet expectation. So, beneath your first sentence, I want you to complete this one. I am feeling resentful because my unspoken expectation was that, and listen to the truth that emerges. They would offer to help without me having to ask. They would show the same level of consideration that I show them. They would notice and appreciate my effort. They would honor my time. This is a moment of profound insight. You are beginning to see that your resentment is not just a random, bitter feeling. It is the legitimate grief for a reasonable expectation that was not met. You are not petty for having this expectation. You are human. You are simply wanting reciprocity, fairness, or respect. Step 3. Name the violated boundary. Your expectation is the why. The boundary is the what. What specific sovereign line was crossed? Beneath your previous sentence, complete this one. The specific boundary of mine that was violated is, and get as precise as you can. My boundary around my personal time in the evenings. My boundary around my emotional capacity to be a sounding board for others. My boundary around equitable distribution of household labor. My boundary around being spoken to with respect. This step is incredibly empowering. You are moving from a vague feeling of being wronged to a clear identification of the specific violation. You are no longer just a victim of a bad feeling. You are a sovereign nation whose border has been breached, and a sovereign nation has the right to defend its borders. And finally, step 4. The transfer of responsibility. This is the most crucial step. It is the step that moves you from analysis to action. For as long as you have held this resentment, you have been secretly hoping that the other person will magically wake up, realize their error, and change their behavior. This is a fantasy that will keep you trapped in bitterness forever. The final step is to take the responsibility for protecting your boundary off of them and place it back on to yourself. Complete this final powerful sentence. To protect this boundary in the future, the one thing I can ask for or do differently is, and write down one small actionable step. To say, I can't talk right now, but I can call you tomorrow. To ask, could you please handle the dishes tonight? I'm exhausted. To not respond to work emails after 7 p.m. To say, it's not okay to speak to me that way. Do you see the shift? The resentment autopsy takes you on a journey, from a vague poisonous feeling to a specific target, from a specific target to an unmet expectation, from an unmet expectation to a violated boundary, and from a violated boundary to a sovereign, actionable choice. You have transformed the energy of resentment from a passive poison that you drink alone into an active, illuminating fuel for self-advocacy. This is not about confrontation. It is about clarity. It is about using the painful, bitter data from your shadow to become a more honest, authentic, and powerful architect of your own life and relationships. You do not have to live with the bitter taste of resentment. You just have to be brave enough to ask it what it's trying to teach you.
To perform this autopsy on your own resentment is a profound act of self-reclamation. You are no longer a passive victim of a bitter feeling. You have become a conscious participant in your own healing. You have taken the poison and you have extracted the antidote from it. The antidote is clarity. The work of the shadow, as Carl Jung revealed, is not to drag us into darkness. It is to bring the darkness into the light of consciousness so that it can be understood and integrated. Your resentment was a shadowy fog clouding your relationships and your peace of mind. Through this work, you have allowed the light of your awareness to burn through that fog, revealing the clear, hard truth underneath, the truth of an unmet need, the truth of a broken boundary. This clarity is your power. It is the firm ground upon which you can begin to build healthier relationships, first with yourself and then with others. You no longer have to live in the vague, exhausting world of unspoken expectations. You now have the data. You have the map. You know where the fences need to be built. This does not mean it will be easy. Communicating a boundary, asking for a need to be met, can be terrifying. We will explore that in future videos. But the first, most important battle has already been won. It is the internal battle, The shift from being a prisoner of your resentment to being a student of it, from being poisoned by it to being informed by it. Releasing resentment is not a single event. It is a practice. Each time you feel that bitter taste, you now have a choice. You can swallow it, allowing it to turn into a slow-acting poison inside you, or you can pause. You can take out your journal and you can honor the messenger, decode its message, and choose to become the sovereign architect of your own well-being. So I invite you to make this practice your own and to continue this courageous work of bringing difficult emotions into a shared, compassionate light. In the comments below, share one thing that consistently makes you feel resentful. You don't need to share the whole story. Just name the trigger. Is it doing the dishes alone, unanswered texts, being interrupted? Let's create a library of these sacred signals so we can all see how deeply universal this experience is. And as you get better at reading the compass of resentment, you may start to notice the root cause of why your boundaries are so easily crossed in the first place. You may notice a deep, ingrained pattern of being agreeable, of being the easygoing one, the one who never makes waves. And in our next video, we will explore why this agreeableness is not a virtue, but a shadow strategy, a way of hiding your true self to feel safe, and how to begin discovering the power and the truth that lies on the other side of nice. Until then, be kind to yourself as you navigate these difficult feelings. You are learning a new language, the language of your own soul. Be patient. Keep listening. Your freedom depends on it.